Okay, here we go. We're going to paint a fox today. This isn't really a tutorial or anything. This is just me getting back into the swing of things with painting. I haven't been painting for a few days. Sometimes I just don't feel like it. So this is the first time back after a while. So let's see how this goes. I'm just going to treat this as a bit of fun. Move you over a bit. Okay. So let's have a look at him. Or her, Mrs. Fox. Let's have a look at the snout first. And I'm going to draw this angle. I'm looking at this angle. This is really quite straight here. And then kind of almost goes vertically and then slightly angles over. So bring that down. It's getting that angle about right. Angles over a little bit more. And that nose is almost right angle there. Okay. Slightly more there. Up to that ear. Ear comes across. Snout. I'm going to put in the angle of the shadow. It's light here and it goes into shadow here. So let's. I was being distracted by the mouth. This comes along. I'm going to take this line up. Yeah, slightly up. Longer ones, kind of. Yeah. That's also straight. And this, the bottom of the jaw is straight, but it's not parallel to the snout. Slightly. I think I've got that snout slightly too short, haven't I? How's that looking? I don't know. That's the front of the eyes and that middle of the ear. It's here. I'm going to keep that. So the eye is. We'll see how this goes. This might be not good. Eye comes dark. On the bottom of the. It's hard to tell because it's dark and then it's light. Let's leave that there. Its eye actually angles back more. Go. There's a highlight in there. Yeah. I'm not going to draw in where it goes from the white fur to the brown fur. I have to paint that in by hand. Inside of the ear. Goes up. Top of this ear is just here. back of this here. Way across. How's that looking? Okay, this here, just a little bit of interest inside this here, these little curly bits on the back of ears. Fur. Okay, there we go. Oh no, I think that I can't tell where that nose is. That angle on that nose is wrong, isn't it? It's ever so slightly more down. It's going to redo that. It's kind of important. Straight. It's better. Maybe. Right. Anyway, let's go with that and see what he looks like. Now, before we start painting, let's just have a look at the values. The light is obviously coming this way. The back of his back is very light. It goes into shadow on this side, but we've got this brown fur, red fur, orange fur, and then this white. And this white is darker than here, but not that much darker. Let's just have a look. So that's around a 9 out there, and in here, trying to see what this is. 6.5. I'm squinting at it. It's around a 6.5 in here, and here it's going to be. What's this? It's a 3. So this is a 3. This is a 9. This is a 6.5. I've got to remember that this is probably darker than we think it's going to be, because it's white fur, but it's in shadow. Out here, let's look at the value of this. So this is 9. And if we look at the isolator colour, it's a brown, but it's very, very washed out brown, orange. No. Now this one, this is an orange, but this is quite light still, isn't it? This is, I'm squinting at it, so I'm looking at the junction between this and colour, and when, if I squint and that boundary disappears, I've got about right. So this is around about 6, and this is actually about the same value as in here. It's also about orange. Okay. So we've got to remember all those. Down here it's sort of blue grey. This light bit is around a 5. 6. Okay. Well, let's slop on some paint. See how we go. Look. Just going to put this onto Zoom Cam just to show you the drawing. I'm not sure about that drawing. Looks a bit too dog-like, doesn't he? Anyway, let's carry on. Let's see how it goes. Just putting a bit of tape on the back of this photo. Popping him up. Yeah, I can just about see that. Right. Let's have a look. Now, paint-wise, let's have a look at my paints. I use a pretty standard palette these days. I don't chop and change very much. I used to fill all of these wells, and now there's empty ones because I've over the years pared them all down. So I have a lemon yellow. This isn't actually, this is Hansa Yellow Light, but it's lemon yellow will be a good one. It's a bright, slightly greenish yellow. Cadmium orange, which you don't need, but I like it. I like the consistency, and I like the slight opaqueness of it. That one. This is vermilion. No, this is an orangey red, which is you can use something like Naphtol red or Cad red light maybe. This is slightly more orangey than those, but anything that's a red that's on the orangey side will work there. This is Permanent Rose Deep from Da Vinci, but Permanent Rose will work. It's a pinkish red. So I have two reds here, one on the orange side, one on the pink side. Yellow ochre, which is mid-value low chroma orange. Burnt sienna, which is a dark orange. Cerulean, which is a greenish blue. Ultramarine, which is slightly purpley blue. And cobalt, which is another slightly greenish blue. I mean, technically you don't really need cerulean. I like it because it granulates nicely. It gives a good texture, and I like mixing it with things like burnt sienna to give a granulating grey, which gives a nice effect. Cobalt blue is a greenish blue. You can maybe swap in phthalo for that. Phthalo tends to take over every painting you do, so I prefer to use cobalt there. Lamp black. I do use black as a modifier, mainly to take the brightness out of colours rather than use complements. Complements can be a bit hit and miss, so I tend to use black, but sparingly, very sparingly. And these other three I kind of sometimes use. This is Cobalt Turquoise Light. If I want a really bright green, you can mix it with the lemon yellow. That'll give a very bright green. This is Lavender, which I sometimes use, which actually not very often. And here is the remnants of Payne's Grey, which I like to use for value studies. It's a very blue grey, but it's nice and intense, and it works well for value studies. Okay, so there are paints. Now let's get a brush out. Let's start slopping on some colour. I think I'm going to start with this orange here. Now let's do some mixing and see what colour this is. I'm going to get a bit of scrap paper out and mix up this colour. Water pot has gone walkabout. Let's pop him up where I can find him. Here we go. All right. So this is an orange. I'm going to use my colour isolator, which is just a piece of paper. I printed it grey, kind of halfway up the value scale, if you can get it. It's roughly half, and just cut a 1/2 inch square out of it. So it's an orange, isn't it? Let's try a bit of burnt sienna and see how far away we are with burnt sienna. It's probably the closest one I have right now. All right, it's not bad actually. It's not exact, obviously. It's not, but I think we want it to go slightly lighter and slightly more to the red side. So let's put in a bit of that orangey red. Let's see what that gives us. Ah, now that we're getting closer, but maybe a little too red. I'm just going to add in a little bit of yellow. Not be too much. Right, yeah. No, I think that's probably pretty much bang on. Maybe a little more red for that colour. So let's slop it on. Now the main thing is that I've got the value right. And if I put the isolator over this, and that, yeah, the value is just about right. So let's see what we're going to do with this. Put it on the side. This is lighter, so we've got to be careful here, but I'm just going to just check. There's a little bit of light there. I can come pretty much all the way down. This has got to be lighter. Let's start. Right, a bit of colour. I'm going to put in some water almost immediately. So a don't get a hard edge. I can get this nice light brown colour down here. Being careful not to go into the white. I have blossoms in here. I don't actually mind. Right, a little bit more colour. I'm just painting. I know this is dark around the eye, but we can always go darker. Just putting it roughly where the colour is. So this comes down. I'm going to go darker in here, but there's a bit of colour on there. Which will work as a first layer. This is just water, so I'm softening that transition between the dark of the coat and the white. Right, let's put a bit of colour out here. I think it went a little too light in there, but it's I'm going to have to wait for that. What I am going to do, I'm going to try putting in some grey in here. This is where I'm going to use a bit of cerulean. I'm hoping this will work. Cerulean with a bit of burnt sienna should give me a grey. I want that to be, what did I say? It was a 6.5. Just above mid value. Right. That's probably about right, maybe a little light. It's a little light. Put a bit more blue in that. Right. Put this grey over the snout where I can see it. And it will look too dark right now. It will look too dark because we haven't got this dark brown in yet. Softening that with some water. Soften this into the neck area. Washing my brush. When I'm softening, I'm trying to get as clean a brush as I can. I'm actually failing. All right, here we go. Right. Put a little bit of dark on the nose. Just a little bit. There we go. Now, just check that. I think that value is too light for this. That's too light. I went too light. Let's let this dry. Then we'll put some shadows in here. I'm just going to pop this onto pause. Okay, it's not quite dry, but I want to put this dark shadow in. This dark shadow on the side of the face here. And we said this is around a 3, I think, weren't we? Yeah, it's around a 3 in there. So I paint everywhere, as usual. Okay, and the colour is going to be a dark brown. Yeah, it's a very grey brown. Look at that. Yeah, there's a very grey brown in there. So let's mix up something that looks pretty close to the actual value. I'm going to start with burnt sienna with this. Oops. Now, I'm going to grey this down with some cerulean. You could use ultramarine for this. This would make it, that would make it grey too. It'll grey it down, and will also make it darker. Let's have a look at this. See if I mix it properly. Yeah. I don't think that's going to be quite. Let's try this. A bit more cerulean in there. I'm going to bring in another brush to do some softening. This will do. That way I can keep pigment on my main brush and do some softening without having to clean it. Right, let's go. This always looks too dark. Right, this is my softening brush. I've just got a damp brush and I'm pulling it across the edge. I'm softening. This softens to go into the white fur on this side. And try not to get too many cauliflowers. It's kind of slightly red over here. I'm just going to drop in a little bit of the vermilion over to that ear. I should maybe have done this wet and wet now. Maybe I still can. Very slight light a bit under that eye. I'm going to strengthen up this colour up here, but not right now. Just going to put in a little bit. I'm squinting at this quite a lot. Just to get that a little bit of the nose in down here. It's actually bluer than this in the reference. I'm just seeing how this works. A softening brush again, softening this top edge. Softening all of it with that. Add in a bit more blue just to take this closer to neutral. It's the dark piece inside the mouth that you can just see. Softening this bottom edge. It's the corner of the mouth. Just going to put a little bit of darkness here and there. Maybe some variation. Let's come back in and do more with this. Right, let's put in some darks around this eye. Eye itself is lighter. There's dark around it. Comes right down the side of the nose. Maybe I should say snout. Let's try in little bits. Right, let's just put a little bit of colour in this ear. Again, softening edges. It's a clean brush. Pretty much every time I put it down on the paper, I'm cleaning it. Otherwise, you end up dragging paint everywhere. It should be dark in there, which I haven't quite got yet. Right, let's leave that for now. I'm just going to put in something for this eye. It looks light in the photo when you look at it. Oof, soften that. Next to this, these very dark bits around the eye, but it isn't very light at all. Just put a little bit of colour in there for now. Right. Okay, I'll put that on pause again. Just put a bit of zoom cone. Okay, let's have a look at this. I want to put a bit more into this eye because it's really standing out as light. And I think the values are okay. It's not looking convincing yet, but I think it's okay. It's one of these things you have to trust. Trust your eyes and not your brain that's reacting to it. Okay, so look at this eye. I'm gonna put a bit of yellow ochre and burnt sienna. Just at the front of this. See a bit more yellow ochre in there. Right to the edge yet. It gets slightly darker. A little bit of ultramarine in there to darken it. It's darker at the top. And a little bit at the bottom. Then we've got that highlight in there, which isn't very light actually. And then it gets very dark in towards the corner. Okay, that's a bit better, isn't it? It's not great. The highlight is still too prominent. Right, I'm just going to darken up that little piece just in front of the eye. So now we've darkened down the eye itself. It's showing up quite how I want it to. It's better. That's a bit better, I think. It's still gonna need to go slightly darker, but it's reading slightly better. Just gonna take a little bit of the slightly too high in value. Darken the top bit. There we go. That's not quite what's in the photo, but I think that's reading better value-wise. That's an eye, isn't it? Soften it a little bit. Right, okay. Good. Right, I'm just going to stand back and see what that looks like. Yeah, that's better. Right, okay. Now I want to put some colour on this ear up here. So let's put in the dark piece. I'm gonna use my ultramarine and burnt sienna, which gives us a nice, well, it can give us a nice neutral, but we can also push it towards the blue or the brown. I'm pushing mine towards blue slightly. And there, that's slightly lighter towards the edge, so I'm just going to put colour near the front of the ear. Right, wash my brush. I'm just going to drag it across the edge. This brush is actually possibly slightly too small for this kind of thing. And what I'm doing when I'm doing this, I'm not painting with paint at all. What I'm doing is I'm wetting the paper. So if the paint is still wet, it will flow back slightly into the wet paper. Let's leave that. I just want a little bit of shade in here, which I'm going to use the cerulean and burnt sienna for this, because I think it gives a slightly nicer paint. The paint consistency just looks nicer when it's dried. I've left this slightly blue. I'm just leaving a sliver of white paper. Just to put that shadow inside that ear. Again, my brush is coming back in. It's a wet brush. I'm just dragging that wet brush along the edge. I'm wetting the paper, and the paint that's down there is just flowing into the wetted paper. Give a nice soft edge. Okay. I think I'm good with that. Soften this a little bit here. Of course, you can only do this whilst the paint is wet. As soon as it dries, it won't work. Okay. Now, in here, it's darker, isn't it? Let's try this again, and I'm going to go back to my ultramarine and burnt sienna for this bit. I could wet the paper to begin with for this. I'm gonna trust that the paint will remain wet enough so I can come in and smooth those edges. Right, washing my brush, wetting that paper, and that brush was actually quite full of water there, but I wanted it to flow right away. Comes back. Yeah. I think this is still wet. You see, this is the problem, it dries. I have my fans on in here at the moment. It's ridiculously warm outside. And the paper is drying really quite quickly. Alright. Dark down here. Probably put this in before, but I didn't. I want hard edges much here. What's that looking? Yeah, that needs to go darker in there, but I'm going to leave that to dry and glaze over it. Alright, now, okay, I'm just going to pause that again for a few minutes and let it dry. Okay, it's had a little bit of drying. I'm going to put a bit more colour up here. I don't think we're that far off, actually. I'm not going to put in a background, I don't think. This is just a head study. The values are kind of working. There's some adjustments I need to make, especially around here. This is a lot darker than it is right now, but this line is working. I'm just going to put a bit more intensity of colour up on that head. I want to keep it lighter than the shadow, obviously, but it does have some intensity up there. A bit of yellow. I want to see reflected. And slightly lighter towards the edge. Just a bit of colour there. Also a bit of colour in here. So I'm just slopping on the paint, washing my brush, coming back to, I'm pretty much just painting on water around the edges of my paint marks, just to get those hard edges to disappear. Oh, that could have been a bit whiter in there. Right now, just going to put in a bit. Just a bit more on this where it goes from dark. Up to light, just a little few bits of it's not quite detail, but this is where the light catches the fur, and you can see a few individual bits of, oops, that's not dark enough. Just flicking that, not too much. Just want to see the odd piece here and there. And a little bit here. Comes down the snout slightly. Soften that edge. Just looking. All that goes around. Paper's still a little wet, so I can drop in some colour. Right. Well, I'm here on the snout. This is very watery, this paint. There's very, very slight value changes around this snout. Is it ridiculously subtle? Right, okay. A little bit of dark on that ear. Just in here. You don't need very much though. Okay, it's still that ear in there is maybe too light. Let's keep it. Let's keep it like it is at the moment. One last thing, whilst I'm putting this nice rich fox red colour in, a little bit in here, slightly more yellow. And soften these edges. This edge comes down. Okay. A little bit of dark. This should probably be put on at the end over everything else, but it's going in here. Bit more blue in there. Blue's taking the chroma out. It's also making it darker. Right, now this white fur we need to do something with. I'm going to probably need a bigger brush. I need to make this dark. basically. In the photo it's come out very blue, and I probably will push it slightly blue, but it's too light in value. I'll take this. Very scared. Yeah, I mean we're up at a, yeah, we're an 8 here. It's not an 8, it's at least a couple of shades value steps darker. It's kind of scary doing this because it's almost looking okay, and now we're going to slop a load of colour all over it. And just seeing how, yeah, I mean that's an 8, isn't it? We do need to go a lot darker. Now this may ruin everything. I'm getting scared. But let's go in and make this darker. I need a slightly bigger brush to do some softening. Alright, damp brush, soften this edge. I'm going down into chest area. Yeah, I think that's worked. It's always a bit of a heart in mouth moment there. It still looks like white fur, but it now definitely looks as though it's in shadow. I need just to mix up a little bit more. And this is come from when we did those original value measurements at the beginning. This is darker in here, so the paint is still wet, so I can drop in colour. Should give it a kind of nice granulating effect as well. Softening, dropping in some water, softening edges. Not being too careful here because it's fur, so it's gonna be not particularly precise. That in there. I'm going to put a little bit of brown. I'm squinting like crazy when I'm doing this, I have to say. Make that slightly darker in there. And yeah, I've got brown on my brushes, and I don't want brown on my brushes. I think I might actually. I think I might need to leave this to dry. I'm getting this to be too. Gosh, not sure about this cerulean I've got. How's that looking? It's looking a bit better, isn't it? I'm just going to spritz on this. And I'm just going to soften these edges a little bit. Maybe put some colour on down here. Okay. Again, soften these edges. I just want it to suggest fur. I don't want it to be the subject of the painting. Now this back actually comes back over here, doesn't it? So it goes over here. A few dabs of paint, and then some softening. A little bit. This doesn't have to be very accurate over here. There's to be something back there. And now I'm going into it too much, of course. Okay, right, okay. So let's soften this. I hate it when I've worked a lot on an area and then I discover that all my edges are hard. A little bit of splitsy. Okay, right, let's pause him, let him dry. I think we're very close, actually. I think we're very close. I did like the way that darkening of this white fur worked there. Okay, right. Pause. Just a quick zoom cam for you. There you go. Okay, we're back. Now, I was tempted to leave it as it is, actually. It's something I quite like about it. However, I'm just going to put it on zoom cam. It's this bit here, which is really standing out as something that I do not like. So I'm going to have to do something about it, and I think it needs to come down in value. It's kind of sticking out and looking out of place, and I think if we take it down in value, it should be okay. I'm a bit worried how it's going to work with the rest of the fur, but let's see. I'm putting back on canvas cam, so let's dry as this, dryish. Just going to make up a cerulean and burnt sienna into a bluish grey, and try and wash over this ear region. I'm wondering whether we'll need to make that darker. That's that looking terrible, isn't it? I mean, that's looking really awful. Okay, clean brush, soften edges. Right, I'm going to mix up some darks, quite a thick dark with ultramarine and burnt sienna. And draw in some of these very dark regions. What's this bit here? Just gonna make this ear slightly darker in the depths of it. Yeah, okay, I think that'll have to be it. A little bit more. Squinting, squinting, squinting. I mean, it's a bit that you probably would never look at if I hadn't pointed it out. And I want to get it right enough so it doesn't notice very much. bit more brown. Okay, right, I think I'm going to leave that there. The only other thing I'm tempted to tweak, well, actually, there's a lot of things I'm tempted to tweak. It's ever so slightly lighter in there. I'm just going to try a weak glaze over that. I mean, this is really not. Oh gosh, I'm lifting colour now. Oh, that didn't work well. And I'm tempted just to put a light wash of colour over the snout, but this is dangerous because I don't want to lose the light. I'm putting it everywhere. Okay. Maybe a bit more colour up here. Just bring the value down a little bit as well. Oh, I think I might have ruined it. Oh no. Oh no. Put it dark in here. Right, I think this is a signal that I need to stop fiddling. Now, one last thing I am going to do, I'm going to put some whiskers in. Can't do this until it's dry, so let's just let that dry. And then we'll put some whiskers in. Okay, final pause. I'll just give you a quick look on the Zoom cam. Yeah, I think it's got something, hasn't it? It's not a masterpiece, but I think there's something there. Anyway, put it back on canvas. I'm going to pause him, let him dry, and then we'll put on some whiskers. And we're back. Let's try some whiskers. Now these whiskers look very dark. I'm not going to paint them incredibly dark. I'm going to use... I'm just thinking which brush to use. So I often like to use a brush like this. It's a synthetic brush, which comes to a nice point. Just wetting this. And it doesn't hold very much water as it's synthetic. Okay, let's try this. So I'm going to mix up a dark with my ultramarine burnt sienna. A little more ultramarine, a little bit of water in here. I don't want them to be black as night. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to dab my brush on a piece of paper towel. Put a few little dots just to make it look like whisker lines. I'm just going to go in lines. Smoosh those a bit. That can come out of here. Actually, I think I have a few of these too. It's growing where it's never used to grow. Right. Down. Barely touching the paper. You don't need very many of these. Right. Okay. A few little bits in here. Smoosh them a bit. That'll do. That'll do. I'm not going to do any more. Not going to do any more. Okay, there we go. There he is, Fox. It's quite interesting that getting that white fur right. And I mean, even though, I mean, we're not painting individual hairs. I think he looks kind of good. I like the paint effect. I'm just going to put him onto zoom cam so you can see what he looks like close up. I kind of like that. Yes, I like that very much. Okay, well, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. I'm sure I will be back doing something else soon. See you next time.